Happy to be here. It's Monday, 5 o'clock here in St. Louis. Beautiful outside today, beautiful. We're hitting fall finally. It's going to be like hoodie weather. It's fantastic. So, yeah, we're here building blocks of bass. Last week was a lot of fun. We went over Israel Crosby lick over But Not For Me from the Ahmad Jamal album. Super fun, had some great feedback and some great conversation afterwards about that. If anybody checking out any of these sessions too, check out our Facebook group. You can find a link down below, and we have some good conversation there about some of the topics that come up. But also check out if you're interested in any of the sheets, the worksheets that I'll be using today. I'm going to put some music up on the screen, but you can find a link to that down below as well. So I'll have all of that available, and even for previous guided practice sessions too, you'll be able to find all of that. So check out the Building Blocks of Bass Facebook group, check out the link below, and definitely, big news still, Christian McBride's new course, Your Sound is Your Signature, is amazing. You need to go check it out. So click on the link below, check out Christian's new Open Studio course called Your Sound is Your Signature. And that's going to segue nicely into what we're going to talk about today. Today we're really going to focus on getting a good sound out of the bass and really focusing on how we do that with the the right hand. I just blew the whole lesson. I said left hand when I was supposed to say right hand, right? But honestly, we're just talking about pizzicato today. We're going to talk about really trying to get a good sound pizzicato, alternating our fingers, talking about index finger, talking about middle finger, how to work them and really get them to where we're getting a good, consistent, even sound at different dynamic levels, which is way harder than it seems, but it's super important, So I like to make the analogy of when we're playing pizzicato on the bass, our fingers, as they pluck, are really similar to a drummer's drumsticks, right? So when we're walking, I want to hear that long, a really clear attack, but a long decay too. That's one of the hallmarks of a good walking bass player, is to have. So I just got a notification, my G is all off now. Is to have a good long quarter note, right? Okay. So and that's one thing that we're going to talk about today. If pizzicato is new to you, if you're coming from the arco world, right, or more of the classical side of things, pizzicato might mean something different to you than it does to like a jazz bass player. So just some of the basics up first, and please leave comments. I'm going to check all of those at the end. It's any questions, any suggestions, anything like that. Please feel free. And again, join the Facebook group. You can write me there. We can talk about it. But I'm right-handed, so a lot of times I just refer to my right hand technique as being my pizzicato technique. If you're left-handed, it's no offense at all, right? I'm just trying to. That's the term I'm used to. Okay. So a couple things key to the sound of pizzicato. Let's just focus on the index finger first, right? And I'll just call this 1 for today. Okay. So we'll call it 1. Some of the things that I'm trying to think about as I get this sound, and I'm just rotating to try to get a better shot with the screen, is I'm pulling the string, right? And I'm pulling my finger back into the next lower string, right? So you want to make sure you're not pulling up. And then there's a focus too the other way. Like some people think about pulling down into the fingerboard. That's a thing. Or pulling back into the string. So you notice there's a slightly different sound doing one or the other way. So that's something to be aware of, think about. But one thing that's crucial is I'm plucking, right? And I'm trying to get a really clear attack. And I'm trying to get a fair amount of my index finger, how can I show that? Right here, on the side of the string. Not like an electric like this so much. You can do that, of course. Whatever sound that you're trying to go for, that's what's up. But we're talking about a little bit more of a fatter quarter note type of sound right now, right? So that's the idea there. And you notice how I'm plucking the string again. I'm not stopping the string. I'm not doing this. I'm trying to pluck through it to where if I looked at a recording of this, the waveforms just wouldn't stop. I would see attack, I would see decay, but there would be no flat line. There would be no silence, right? So I think that's crucial to really getting a good understanding of, or getting a good quarter note type of vibe, and then also for soloing or anything else you're doing, right? Now, a lot of times questions come up, okay, that's great, like walking bass lines is great. What about when it gets faster and you can't just use your index finger? Well, I'll back that up actually. You'll see a lot of great bass players playing with their second finger as well, their middle finger, right? So all the exercises we're going to do today, we're going to focus on 1, we're going to focus on 2, and then we're going to focus on alternating them. Now, you have to practice this to get a good, like to get an even sound. Do you know what I mean? Like your fingers can't attack the string in the same way. So sometimes you'll play and you might have one finger that's really popping out and making the volume way, way higher. Do you know what I mean? Or one is like always accented and the other is not. So these exercises we're going to do today is all about trying to even that out, okay? Make a really even sound, and we're going to practice dynamic levels too, okay? So let's get into it, okay? And again, I see we've got some comments. Definitely going to say what's up at the end, but I'm just going to get started with my practice here, okay? All right, so I'm going to set my metronome to 60. This is going to be 60 beats per minute. And here's our first exercise that we're going to do. Now this looks really simple, and it is simplistic, but it's all about what? It's all about the sound, right? We're trying to get a good, clear, even sound. And when we're just playing index finger, when we're just playing second finger, and then also as we're alternating. Okay, so try this with me. We're going to play this all the way through and back, piano, just with the index finger to start with. Try it with me if you got the bass, okay? Now you want to think about, now this is kind of cutting off where my string is attacking, so I'm going to raise up a little bit. But think about keeping your thumb behind the fingerboard right here, just planted, and plucking in the same spot. Okay? And you notice I'm not doing a bunch of arm stuff. You don't really, you know, everybody's got their own style. You don't need to do that, especially when we get faster, that just won't help you at all. Okay, so let's play this through. Let's play it piano, okay? 1, 2, sorry. 1, 2, 3, go. And a repeat of the whole note. Piano now. Just index finger. Now we're going to move to half notes. Now whatever piano seems like to you, that's cool, but just think that that's what we're doing. Go into quarter notes. Trying to let these be long. Don't cut off the string. Don't do. Same with eighth notes, right? Really long legato notes. Back to quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half notes. So I'm just thinking about a really even sound now, right? No accents. Whole note. And really feel that whole note. Whole notes are hard. Let's do the same thing with our index finger now, okay? Piano. Okay? And try to get a similar sound to what you're getting with your index finger. We're going to do middle finger is what I'm trying to say. I think I just said index. Let's do the whole exercise with our second finger now, right? So 1, 2, 3, go. Piano. Now half notes. You see what my first finger is doing? It's just kind of chilling right there. It's being ready for the next, like when I'm going to use them, alternating. Eighth notes. Quarters. You might wonder why we're playing this piano right now. Really not trying to stress my hand at all. I'm just trying to warm up. Get a good sound quietly. The bass is known for being quiet in the first place, right? But we want to be able to practice playing soft. We don't always have to dig in and like really bash everything, right? Okay, let's try that whole exercise now. Still a piano, but alternating our fingers, okay? So now, of course, there's some questions come up when you do this. Do you start with your first finger? Do you start with your second finger? Doesn't matter, right? But I think it's a good idea to practice both. So that's what we're going to do now, okay? So still piano. We're going to start this exercise here. First finger, and alternate to second finger. First finger, second finger, okay? So try with me. Now we're looking for an even, consistent sound between either finger, right? That's the goal here, and that's what I'm trying to practice. So 1, 2, 3, go. So I'm starting 1, now 2. Now I'm going to half notes. So 1, 2, 1. Keep alternating. So this is first finger for quarter notes. Same with eighth notes. Quarter notes. Okay, halves. Then whole notes again. Great. And so now, again, the reason I'm trying to do this piano to really just like stay relaxed, especially because we're going to increase our speed, increase our rhythmic density as well. We're just up to eighth notes right now, but we're going to hit eighth note triplets and 16th notes as well. So I want to be able to stay cool, like when I'm doing that, right? There's, of course, multiple ways that you could practice this, going through different dynamic levels. So say like doing everything now, mezzo forte or forte, working just index finger, just middle finger, alternating your fingers. That's all good, right? If I want to do something now and increase that rhythmic density, I'm going to move on to eighth note triplets and 16th notes, okay? This is coming up because I get a fair amount of questions about how to alternate your fingers and still get a good sound, right? Because a lot of this stuff is really popping up, like you get a lot of, we just want to have control, basically. This goes for when you're walking up tempo, right? Same type of thing, right? So let's put it back at 60. And let's try this exercise now, okay? So the idea here is to alternate. We're going to play our quarter note triplets, and you'll notice this is going to land on index, middle, and then line back up when we go to 16ths. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, because they're even, right? You're only using 2 fingers at this point, or we are. But, of course, other people do. You can use 3 fingers in there. That's for a different day. So let's try this now. We're going to start with our index finger. Let's try thinking of this now maybe at mezzo forte, okay? So as the volume gets louder and our rhythmic density increases, it's going to get a little harder to play. So just stay relaxed, try to stay focused on it, and do your best. So we're going to start index finger and alternate that way. So triplets, 1, 2, 3, go. Sixteenths. Back to triplets. Sixteenths. Okay, cool. And again, the idea is to stay nice and even there, even though we're playing a little bit faster. And now this tempo could be like a rhythm changes type of idea or something like that too. We're starting to get into that tempo if we double it up and play 16ths, right? So let's try this again, but now starting with your second finger. You're probably going to find a preference the more you practice stuff like this, right? But again, it doesn't matter. However you make the bass sing, that's up to you, like figure that out. But you want to explore different opportunities to find what your preferences are, right? All right, I'll stop talking, let's practice. So here's the triplets, and we'll go into 16ths. Let's keep this at mezzo forte, except now we're starting with our second finger. So we're doing 2, 1, 2, 1, right? You got me? So triplet, 2, 3, go. Triplets, 1, 2, 1, right? So it's alternating. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, sense? Right. So it's fairly easy to do at that speed, right? Or hopefully it's easy, you know, or it's getting to that point. Let's try this, where we increase our rhythmic intensity all the way through. We're going to go from whole notes. I know I'm covering up like half the screen, right? More than half the screen. Whole notes, halves, quarter notes, eighth note triplets, sixteenths, back to triplets, eighth notes, quarter notes, half notes, and then we'll return back to our whole note. Okay, so I'm going to take this off the screen because that's way too much stuff to have on the screen. All right, but I'm also going to increase my tempo to 80 beats per minute now. Okay, so of course it's going to be faster. When we get to the 16th, it's going to be trickier. And that's the point. We want to practice like pushing up our limit, right? Okay, again, the idea is to stay relaxed in the right hand and still get a good sound. A really clear attack, all of these notes as long as you can make them. Okay, so we're just letting our left hand chill for the most part today. I've got some other stuff that we're gonna hit a little bit later, but let's get into this. So your preference, if you want to start on index finger or middle finger, 1 or 2 for this, but the idea is to alternate and to stay nice and relaxed for this time through. You could do this all index finger as well. You could do this all middle finger as well. And it's a good idea to do that too if you've not done exercises like this very much. But I want to talk about like alternating a little bit more now. Okay? So we're going to start with whole notes. Your dynamic level's cool. I'm going to be thinking whatever you want to do is cool. I'm probably going to think like a mezzo forte. Okay? So 1, 2, whole notes. 1, 2, 3, go. So that set my volume. That's where I'm trying to stay. Okay? Half notes. Quarter notes. Try to stay like really honest with alternating, okay? Triplets. Sixteenths. Triplet. Eighth notes. Quarter notes. Of course, halves. Whole notes. Cool. Hopefully that felt good. That's getting a little bit faster, right? But we're really just trying to narrow in. So much of our sound is coming from the right hand. It's how we're producing. I mean, like if we just put down our left hand, nothing's, you know, you can get a little bit of sound, but you have to do both, right? Really where the sound generator is your right hand or your pizzicato hand, right? So that's really, we want to have a good handle on our dynamic level and our articulation that way. You could, of course, go through and add in your accents to this too. If you were doing like, there's a bunch of possibilities to this, right? Too much to get into ever, and especially in one of these sessions. Okay? So, oh, I did make a little graphic. So you could practice that whole thing that we just did. The first time all index finger, second time all middle finger, or second finger, and then the third time alternating. You'll have a good practice, like a good right hand warm up to work on that way. And again, just think dynamic level too. A good idea is to record yourself when you're doing this and listen back, because that's going to give you the most honest example of that, right? So let's maybe try that. Let's do that whole exercise again. We're going to do first finger the first time through, second finger the second time through, alternating the third time through. All right, it's going to take a little while to do it, but let's do it. That'll be a good practice in our right hand. And again, we're at 80 beats per minute right here. If you want any of the worksheets for what we're working on today, click the link down below, and that'll take you to where you need to go, okay? So, what dynamic do we want to do? Maybe we'll stick it at piano. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. All index finger this time through. Whole note. Half notes. Quarters. Now, of course, you could do quarter note triplets here. I'm just skipping right to 8 notes. but it's all index finger. This is why, well, sixteenths. Eighth note. Quarters. Into halves. Whole notes. It's important to practice these whole notes. Make sure you're hitting dead on. Now let's do it all second finger. We're looking for that same sound, right? That same evenness. Half notes. If you have any questions about this or any comments, leave them. I'm going to check it out after we do this. Triplets. Sixteenths. Quarters. Of course, halves. Whole note. This is, of course, just a good rhythmic exercise, too. So now let's do alternating, but let's see, are we going to start second finger or are we going to start first finger? Doesn't really matter. We just did most of that starting, or the last half of that with second finger. So I'm going to think of it this way now, doing it starting second finger and alternating every time, okay? So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. That's my dynamic level now. That was not so good. Halves. Quarters. Eighths. Triplets. Eighths. Quarters. Halves. Whole note. Right? Cool. So hopefully that's feeling pretty good. You can of course increase the speed, and we are going to do a little bit of that a little bit later. But I just wanted to hop into the comments, see if there's anything related to what we've gotten into now. Because if there's anybody still watching that made a comment, I want to, you know. Aw, Sean Simon. Hey, looking forward to figuring out how to pluck this bad boy. I love it. Sean was my buddy from the Your Sound is Your Signature boot camp. Yeah, Sean. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. If you have any questions or any comments, like, what am I leaving out? I know people are like, okay, Bob hasn't talked about this yet, and why is he not talking about this? Why has he not said that? So whatever I'm leaving out, call me on it, please, please, please. Martin, hello from the Alps. Oh, hey, what's up? Wish I was there. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, here's one. I'm eager to hear you talk about dealing with the E string. Ah, there we go. Beautiful. Everything that I've been doing thus far, hopefully the word nerds are still here. I've been talking about the G string, but the E string, and my buddy Sean that I was just talking about, he asked this in this boot camp. When you're playing fast, how do you deal with the E string? Okay. So all of these exercises too, this rhythmic exercise you can of course do it on any string, but the trick is on the E string, if you're playing 4-string bass, the E down here, you can't pull back. You can't pull back to the next lowest string, right? So that causes a problem, right? On electric bass, you think back, I mean, a lot of people pluck back into their thumb that's resting on, say, the pickup. What's kind of similar here when we're playing, when I'm playing faster on the E string, let me see if I can find an angle that's going to work. I'm pulling my finger back into my thumb and making that the like backstop for that finger. Same with second. That's how I think about that. So if I'm going through and doing like eighth notes on that, and of course that'll wear you out way quicker because that string, it takes a lot more energy to move this big E string than it does that G string, right? But that's of course very integral too, and it's not something I've really dealt with here. So that brings up other ideas. The different diameters of the strings, it's harder to play different ones. Like playing the E string just takes more physical exertion. So if you're playing, that's why you want to also practice your open string exercises and look for that same consistency of dynamic level and attack and sustain and everything else, right? But that's a great question, and I'm glad I popped in here. So word nerds, if you're still here, did that address what you were talking about? Dealing with the E string. It's very tough to stay anchored there, but again, my advice is to leave your thumb planted right here. Right there. I've got a little callus there. It's always right there. Right? I've heard Ron Carter's students sometimes will have like a little bit of Velcro taped right there, so you can always feel where your thumb is planted on the side of the fingerboard. And that's a common thing you'll see with most great bass players. Like they'll just gonna have that thumb there all the time, no matter what string they're playing, and that's like their anchor. Hopefully that helped. Cool. Victor, hello from Sydney, Australia. What's up, Victor? Okay, Michael Crane, isolating second finger is a great idea. I don't know if it's the curvature of my second finger or natural hand angle, but it's noticeably weaker and I don't use it much. Amen, Michael. That is why specifically, like, at some point in my practice career, I started really practicing alternating and trying to make it more uniform, to play faster, to play cleaner, you know, of course, and just to be able to do what I need to do rhythmically. So much of like the early bass playing that I did, or just coming from like Ray Brown type of ideas, like really just that quarter note, trying to get a lot of finger on the string. And then when I would try to go faster with a big curvature like this, I could never get it evened up very well. You know what I mean? It always had this low boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, like if I tried to go much faster like this, that would always happen to me. So, you know, I don't know if I said it too, but playing on the E string, of course, it takes more energy, but you still want to stay relaxed. It's easy to get a lot tighter, you know, when you need that extra punch, you know, to get that string to work, right? So yeah, but that's the idea, Michael, behind that is like practicing specifically second finger, trying to get that even sound. I cut myself off because I was trying to go from eighth notes to triplets in one of these exercises, but I didn't want to mess up, right, on YouTube. I don't know why I don't want to mess up. I make mistakes all the time, so, but you feel me, right, I'm sure. So, but the idea comes from, you know, with me, you see electric bass players doing this too, playing with their index finger like all the time to get a real even, like especially rock bass players will do that, get a real even sound. When you start to introduce the second finger or alternating fingers, it's way harder to get that same like even, you know, dynamic and attack, which is super important. And that's why folks play with picks too, right? To keep that really uniform type of sound and getting a good pick technique. It's of course crucial to an electric bass player, right? But that's kind of where that's coming from with my pizzicato ideas right here. So, Double Bass Jazzy, what's up, man? How are you? I love all the interaction we're doing in the Facebook Building Blocks of Bass group. You can click that below if you're not a member yet. But the Double Bass Jazzy's all over it. Okay. Terranova T, can you address tightness in the wrist and pinky when going fast? Okay. So, and there should always be like a disclaimer at the bottom. I am no expert at this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the answer for all of this, but this is just my opinions, of course. That's why you're here. So, and most of all of this is stuff that I got from other people too. It's not mine, right? So, the pinky. The wrist and the pinky. The wrist should stay loose. So I'm never, I don't keep it really tight, and I also don't want it flopping around. I mean, when I say loose, I mean it's like, it's not one way or the other. It's in the middle, if that makes any sense. It's loose, you know, I keep saying the same word, and I'm not doing it, I'm not saying what I need to be saying, I get that. Let's talk about the pinky, though, because that was one of your questions here, too. The pinky, and this is old school bass technique, you wrap the pinky and the ring finger up against your palm is an idea. You know, a lot of people do that. I think one of the old, I have no idea where I read this, but the idea of taking an old matchbook, you remember those? Matchbook, and holding it here. So you've got your fingers out of the way, right? Or the third and the fourth finger out of the way. That's what I think about typically with my pinky. You see guys play with their fingers just out, you know, or bass players, not guys, of course, everybody plays bass. But you'll see like bass players playing with their fingers out too. And as long as they're out of the way, it doesn't make any difference, right? For me, I feel more grounded, and I'm just more used to it, I'm sure, to keep them tucked away in here. So that's my idea on that, Terranova. Okay, Mikkel, can you talk about string-to-string crossing, going up and down, string skipping? Much harder. I find it much harder than on electric bass. Yeah, for sure. Well, and again, this is like the gauge of this E string just doesn't compare to electric bass at all, right? It's way harder to get a good sound and an even sound and to physically move the strings. So string crossing, you can do, you know, it's a similar idea, and it's important to say. So I'm really glad you brought this up, Mikkel. Another concept that I think about is staying over like the pickup area, what I call the pickup area, and there's no pickup here, right? The pickup, if you're using one, is down in the bridge or a mic or whatever. But like the analogy of playing an electric bass, how when you move closer back towards the bridge, it's got a different tone, timbre. Or if you pluck right over the pickup, it's got a different sound. So I call this, just, you know, to have a stupid analogy, I call this my pickup area. I always am thinking about plucking right there to get a good, clear, loud sound. Now, of course, you can pluck up here, and a lot of great bass players do, and you can hear probably immediately a different tone, right? So your relation to the bridge is definitely got a big volume. You know, there's a correlation between your volume and your relationship to the bridge, where you are. But I like to stay in this pickup area for normal, like walking bass line playing. Now, what you asked about, Mikkel, was string to string crossing, going up and down. Let me just play through some of that and see what comes up in my thoughts. It's not something I really was thinking about addressing today, but quick ones are to think about. I can say, I can make you know, a shameless plug, is that I have my own bass course coming out on Open Studio called The Building Blocks of Bass. Very original, I know. It's based, you know, like with the idea of these sessions in mind. But I do a lot of exercises related to string crossings there. So if you're looking for more, you can find my course, The Building Blocks of Bass, out on Open Studio very soon, the next couple weeks, I'm sure. And also, I do some guided practice sessions for Christian McBride's courses, Your Sound is Your Signature and Fundamentals of Jazz Bass. Did I say that right, Andrew? I always get turned around. Yeah, jazz bass fundamentals, jazz bass. So Christian's courses, I have exercises on that. But for string crossings, you know, a good one you can do is go saying, like making E your anchor. So half notes, A, E, A, E, D, E, D, E, G. And one thing that comes to mind as I'm watching, looking at the screen and watching my hand to see what I'm doing, I'm always trying to think about keeping my thumb planted and plucking at roughly the same area, if not exactly, for string crossings. String skipping, right? That's a bigger string skipping. There's breaking, of course. source, which is when you're dropping from one, and that's a big thing if you're doing like triplet drops, you know. But raking is when you're pulling down from one string to the next. You can't really do that going up, but you can practice alternating with different. Maybe some of this is giving you some ideas on what you could practice, Mikkel. It is much harder. Yeah, it's different. You know what I mean? It just takes a little bit of getting used to. But you know, your string height too can play a big part in this as well. You know, how hard or easy or just right it is. You know, so if your strings are super high, a lot of these are probably going to be a little harder to get the string to feel right. You know. Okay, good. Glad to hear that word, nerds. Awesome. Thanks for chiming in. Okay, Sean's back. Is it better to rake with one finger going to adjacent strings like G to D, or still alternate fingerings? Also, any advice on technique for string skipping? Okay, so this came up again, yeah. You know, going back to like the triads exercise that we did in the first couple of ones, that really, I mean, or doing any scale stuff where you're doing bigger, not staying just on one string and really focusing on that. The idea with staying on the one string for today is to think about the evenness of sound, right? You got to get that down, you know, like say on the G string or the D string even. Is it better to rake with one finger going to adjacent strings? I would say, Sean, that has to do with what the musical material is. So adjacent strings, adjacent meaning going like down this way. Yeah, I think dropping down with the first finger, I mean, that's a really common thing that I do. But sometimes, I mean, it all comes down to what the music needs. That I did, you know, I was thinking about going first finger, second finger between the G and the D string. So here's maybe a good exercise you could do with this, and this is going back to Mikkel as well. String crossing just with your index finger, string crossing just with your second finger, and you'll notice that I'm having to mute the G string, right? Because when I pull, you have to mute it, otherwise it's just going to be all like sounding at the same time and sound floppy or, you know, mixed together. So think about muting in the left hand too when you're doing this. But right, so that's all middle finger. Now I'm going to think about doing index, middle here. Flipping that would be a whole nother ball of wax, right? I don't think that I could do two into one quite as easily, right? That seems really much more awkward to me. Or less, I don't know. Maybe it's not. I mean, again, it all goes back to whatever the music is calling for. But I think that's a good idea. Think about alternating your fingers when you're doing string crossings. So between G, A, G, E. And that could be all index finger too, right? You notice I'm hitting higher up here. As I look at my screen, I'm hitting a little higher because you have to get this angle around here. So I don't know if that helped or hurt, but that's a great question, Sean. Hopefully that was in the vein of what you were going for. Again, anybody feel free to join the Facebook group, ask me questions directly. I'm not hard to find, so find me on Facebook. Yep, cool. And there's some links down here. Yep, totally. So there's plenty of stuff there to practice. I just wanted to show one more thing because I had a little extra stuff put together for today's practice. And I just want to run through that real quick. I'm not going to keep you too long, Andrew, I promise. But this goes back to now integrating your left hand with your right hand practice that you've been doing. So we hit whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets, sixteenths, and then back down, right? I want to do the same thing with my chromatic scale now and work on alternating, but getting the chromatic scale where I'm using my left hand to really get that stuff like synced up. So this is putting your hands together. So I'll put this back on at 100. And this is just a chromatic scale, right? Seems simplistic, but it really just gets you moving up and down the string. And I'm also trying to think about alternating my fingers, right? So I think about this in groups of 3 notes. There's open G, but then 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then vice versa coming down, right? And there's a bunch of stuff. We did a whole thing on chromatics, so you can go back and check that out too. But I want to practice this. Now, if you just saw this at this tempo and saw quarter notes, you might just practice index finger, right? And you totally could and should. But right now I'm going to focus on alternating, okay? So pick whichever finger you want to start with. But let's go through and do quarter notes a few times. And let's try to maybe think about dynamic level too. So let's do this 3 times. Piano, mezzo forte, and forte. Ready? So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. Mezzo forte, whatever that means to you. It's really subjective to whatever's happening in the music, right? Alternating, try to really be sure you're alternating. Forte. Ooh, I need a finger replaying. That B flat is really hurting. Right around here. Another idea to practice this too, and dynamics are super important, obviously, so practice the mess out of dynamics. You could think about starting this piano and hitting forte by the time you hit G, and flip that, but let's try that. Let's try piano, and by the time we get to this G, right there, make it forte. So piano, big crescendo into this, and then a decrescendo back into the G. I'm going to take that off because we don't need that anymore, right? So 1, 2, alternating, go. Crescendo, right? Try to make that real gradual. It's hard. But we're always practicing a few different things at once, right? We're practicing our rhythm, we're practicing our sound, we're practicing our dynamic level, practicing chromatic scale, obviously, right? So let's get into the funness. Let's turn it into 1/8 notes. All right? So we're at 100. Let's try it 3 times through. Piano, mezzo forte, forte. Okay? Alternating. 1, 2, 1, 2. Stay relaxed. That's tough, man. Let's try it with triplets, okay? Same idea. Piano, mezzo forte, forte. 1, 2, 3, go. All over the map. It's tricky, right? That's the idea. And I'm kind of rushing through these because I know we're going a little bit long. But 16ths, same idea. Now this is like way fast. I couldn't get away. Maybe you can a little bit. But any faster than this, and we're going to start running out of room, running out of gas with just an index finger or just your second finger. So that's when we start getting into the alternating. So let's try it alternating, even though I just did it all index. Piano, mezzo forte, forte, right? 1, 2, 3, go. That's hard. Your hand just wants to tense up, right? So the trick is to stay relaxed with it, right? So at this point, your pizzicato hand has got a good workout, right? You're warmed up. I feel ready to play anything else now. So this is great stuff to practice, like in the beginning of your practice sessions, you know, if you're really wanting to focus on your sound, so much of the sound is coming from your right hand. So don't neglect that for sure, okay? I see there's a few more comments. I'm going to bounce in there real quick and see what's up. Great, Sean. Happy to hear that, man. Excellent. Let me know your ideas, too. I am all ears. JG, hey, Bob, do you have any other books that you recommend for technique besides the Smandl ones? Ah, okay. Yeah, there are a bunch of great books. I mean, check out Ray Brown's Bass Method. Ron Carter has some great instructional materials out there. This great bass player, Orlando LeFleming, put out a great book called Getting It Together not that long ago, and he talks a lot about this stuff, right? Getting sound in the right hand. It's a great source. We can maybe find some links for some of this. But a really great source to go to is Open Studio. You can find the links down below. There's some great courses by a little bass player named Christian McBride. Y'all probably heard of him. If not, go check out Christian McBride. He's pretty good. And then there's Master Ruben Rogers, Master of the Bass. It's so great. He's got some great courses on Open Studio as well. So check out the links down below. And books are really, really, really great, of course. If you can find a teacher to study with, that is fantastic. That's the way to go. Even if that's one lesson every now and then, if it's online these days, because that's kind of what we have to do for the most part, that's better than, you know, kind of thumbing through some books like on your own. So have somebody to talk to about that stuff. I really think that's crucial. Do you have any, JG, do you have any books that you've checked out? Smandl is great for like learning these positions. And I think we've talked about that a little bit before, but yeah, there's just a whole lot of really good books out there as well. So awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun as always. Thanks for checking out the building blocks of bass. I'm going to get going to my next thing, but happy practicing. Work on the right hand. Join the Facebook group. Oh, Sean, you just landed one more. Okay, this is the last one, I promise. When you play way up in the stratosphere in thumb position, do you move your right hand and pluck past the fingerboard? I don't. Just past the fingerboard, that's where all my good rosin is, and if I pluck up there, it's going to tear up your fingers, right? So when I play higher in the stratosphere, as you say, I like that. That's when I tend to move my hand from this direction to this direction. So I get a little bit more of like a fingernail. This is personal to me, you know. You could do it sideways. But I like the sound of the, you know. Oh yeah, Sean just mentioned that the jazz bass book by John Goldsby. That's right over here. That's a fantastic book too. Good call. Great call. Victor, awesome. All right, I'm really going this time. Peace, happy practicing. Thanks so much. See you next Monday, okay? Bye.